So, out of all of these, Skewmond has been broken by the probably especially loud voice of Kadui, if I had to guess, into becoming one of the biggest lane-centric junglers in the game. And White has a similar thing, where his laners like to play really far forward, really hard with trades. His Bao on his team, there's no way he's going to get about that. Iker is more like a rock, but he does play with heavy prio. And White's job is similar to Vitality 2018, where he sits on top of the enemy jungler and prevents that guy doing his job, which should be to mess up his laners going for heavy prio, right? So White does that, Skewmond is a slave, and in K-Corp, everyone else is a slave to Linkus. Linkus is mini Milky Way and his 4 wards. I love it. That, for me, is, like, the perfect team, is the way Linkus plays it. And I think probably the best way to show that is probably... Is it the finals? Or was it... It might have been this one. I only say it because it's the highlighted one, but in fairness, I didn't go through the OTP VODs for the rest. No, it's definitely not this one. So it's probably the first game of the finals, maybe? Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It's the first game of the finals. Probably the best way to show that massive difference is here. This will show you what I mean. So obviously... Whoa, love this. So obviously, Draven, Maokai bot lane, Talia mid, should be fairly simple set of priorities, and then you have with BDS, they basically need to fight to get all of that back. Orianna can absolutely win in on mid, but it takes a lot of jungle there. So top to bot from both sides. Top lane is never going to be the focus for either jungler here. You have a lot of priority for Linkus to play with on bot, so he is much more free to take camps at will. Whereas for Skewmond, if fights happen anywhere, it's going to happen bot, not with the tank on top side, right? So obviously, he has to play towards bot as well. He could, theoretically, play bot to top, right? Because he has heavy prio there, but for him, it's all about backing up his lanes. But this isn't, like, where it gets obvious. So he finishes his clear bot side, right? And then he resets. And then he moves straight bot. What are the next camps that are going to respawn for him? It's going to be top. Right? Now, here's what I'm thinking here. If I'm a jungler, you couldn't pay me money to go bot here. Okay? If I'm Skewmond. And if I'm Draven, you couldn't pay me money not to be screaming at my jungler to come bot for a dive. Right? Kadui is consistent, you don't watch League, gotcha. Now, we have Skewmond bot, okay? We have potentially the ability to fix bot wave, right? We have potentially the ability to fight, with potentially the ability to do anything. Linkus is doing the normal top to bot stuff, right? Skewmond now leaves to now move top side straight up and start collecting his respawned camps. He's a little bit off sync, but there is a trick you can do here if you go Raptors in towards Krugs back into bot side. Point is, very sacrificial set of decisions for him because the lanes matter more than anything for Skewmond, right? Now, on this pass, Linkus moves bot. Draven Maokai are attempting to push in on bot side. Right? We reset again? Was it on this pass? It's on this pass. There you go. It's on this pass. He has the opening here. Right? And this, to me, is a bit wild. Okay? The decision here by Khalees to just immediately drag himself into jungle is the literal opposite of what I have just witnessed on the BDS side, right? It's like the literal opposite. And I love this sequence because it's just, okay, Kadui is definitely going to crash bot if we do an extended play on top side to defend, right? Skewmond has not shown that he is going to go hella deep. This is a sacrificial play by Kaliste. So clearly for K-Corp, this is about jungle and maintaining jungle advantage. And for BDS, it's about maintaining lanes as well as we can, right? And what I just love about the opening few rotations by the junglers is how clear that is, right? You are never guaranteed to get a kill here, right? You are losing CS bot as a Draven, right? I could think of many slurs many Dravens would be saying rather than giving up all of this on bot side. And equally, I could think of many Volibears who would say many slurs rather than go and back up bot lane in the scenario in which he did when his next respawn camps are going to be top side. He is behind, Skewmond is behind because of the decisions he made to back up lane, and now Kaliste is using a potential advantage on bot to back up jungle. But this whole sequence for me perfectly describes both teams, right? You have mini Milky Way here, right? Mini Milky Way. Linkus. Plus 4 wards, right? Because that's basically how they play them. And then here you have, like, a slave jungler, right? Oh. Who I hope gets more money than he is probably getting. Alright? Fight for your rights, Skewmond, if you're out there. And then this guy just sits on the enemy. Right? This guy just wants to, like, 1v1 jungle. Right? I actually love the way Gentlemates do it because of how much it reminds me of that old Vitality lineup in 2018. Not the Vitality Academy or Bees lineup, but the one in the LEC that they are qualified in. I had to prep a lot against that particular team. And the consistent thing with every jungler they had was they all performed the same function. My laners want to play hard for tempo. That's great. Instead of the Skewmond thing of sacrificing camps to help lanes, I am going to sit in enemy jungle, prevent him doing anything about it. And this is what left them uniquely vulnerable to Entropic. Because for Entropic, it is all about that 2v2 mid, and then playing on specific timings in jungle itself. And that does make you uniquely strong into something like Gentlemates. For Mini Milky Way, it's about camp advantage any way that you can. And for BDSA, it's about bot lane, ramming a fist through them, and top and mid. And they could theoretically do that. BDSA remind me a lot of 2019... It was 2019. Yeah, the Berlin International Gaming lineup in 2019 with Lavrov, if you remember that one. They have a very similar set of objectives when they come in game, and Genax is honestly the White Knight of this tournament in the same way, just an absolute rock, who will pretty much guaranteed never lose lane here. But the jungler's job primarily is to maintain those going as long as possible. So for me, modeling it like that, it's no surprise they're able to beat K-Corp Blue when they do. And it's slightly more surprising when K-Corp Blue are able to win. Because even if K-Corp Blue have the winning lanes like they did in that game, for example, it's not a guarantee those winning lanes will play through, because of this priority on linkers and camp advantage and playing those, you could say skirmishes, but it's more about contesting jungle in those early phases, right? For BDSA, those are just opportunities to fix their waves. And naturally, if you're able to do that very, very consistently, you're more likely to get tempo on the map post 20 minutes, right? That set of decisions more likely puts you in the lead on those side lanes, rather than the jungle-based decisions. That makes sense to you guys. For Gentlemates, the map setup is the Rogue 131. We talked about this a lot in play-ins. I don't know if you guys, how many of you guys watched my play-ins mega preview. But with Gentlemates, that map strategy later is not so defined by their ability to get those side lanes, rather than the fact that they don't push like a double threat advantage on those sides later, right? Like, probably the best way to do it. Go down there. For the love of God, man. So, like, just say Gentlemate's the blue side, right? This is a kind of position Gentlemates would almost never be brought into, right? This is a kind of position we saw, like, Boostgate be put into sometimes. You'll see G2 be put into this kind of position a lot, because for Gentlemates, losing this level of mid-control is an absolute absurd thing for them. Because they don't feel safe to outpush either side, whereas what G2 would do in this moment is they make a hard play on both sides, and one of them is going to work, and you're not going to get back tempo on the other one, even if you are able to get the kills there, right? For them, allowing a secession of midsection is fine. But for Gentlemates, right, what they will always do is they will always shift in to make sure that they're maintaining or are able to at least contest midsection at every point, right? And they will not risk making plays on two sides at once. They'll only make plays when one side can succeed because they have knowledge of all of the enemies being on a particular side. So for them, the key thing later is, does Ragnar get to 1v1 the enemy at some point? And if Ragnar gets the fully safe time to do that, they explode the game that way, right? If he doesn't get the time to do that, they could lose, right? And this is the other aspect. This is the other aspect of it. Because if you want to beat Entropic, and the way that Glor beat Entropic, you have to have a more evolved understanding of tempo, because that's how Entropic would always lose, whereas Entropic will just collapse into two lanes as well every single time. Even if they will forget about the other one, they don't necessarily care about it. That's an issue with them, but not one that Gentlemates could ever push, right? Oh, wait, let me just go over any questions. Kadui versus Luger, which one is better in your opinion? Oh, that's what the other guy was saying too. Kadui versus Luger is such a weird one. I personally would probably prefer to go with Luger, because there are more supports that I can put with Luger who will be able to perform, rather than with Kadui. Kadui needs a very particular kind of support, the one that he has on BDS being one of them. What do you think about K-Corp B Rylek rumors? I don't think that should be the play from them. I think they need, if you want to replace Linkus, then you need a camp advantage map jungler, and Rylek isn't one of those kinds of junglers, right? When do I rate Prime teams? I don't have a particular schedule. I'm just chatting as I feel right now. Donald Zazi Kazaba, yeah, it was the Burnout Social Gaming one, yeah. Just import Canyon. True! Just import Canyon based. Okay, do we understand the French teams? Does anyone have any questions on the French teams? We'll get into how that will interact with the rest of the teams in their group a bit later, but does everyone understand the French teams at least? Or have some idea? Or do you want me to go over a specific part of it again? Because I'm just gonna ramble on with nerd talk until you guys tell me to stop. Bao is probably the least important part of Gentlemates. To be clear, on most teams, the AD carry is the least important part. LFL typically wins this tournament. K-Corp typically win this tournament, but when K-Corp isn't winning, LFL don't. Are there any other teams in LFL that were part of the growth? Oh, now that is a question. That is a good fucking question. So the answer said, Misfits Prime. I'm sorry. But if those guys can defeat NLC when their mid laner is from German Div 3 and started playing in Tier 1 3 weeks ago, then maybe you could say that, alright? Misfits Premier, the leader era, was the only time they won before K-Corp, I think? That wasn't 2019, that was 2018. No? Or was it 2019 spring? It may have been 2019 spring, but I feel like it wasn't. It was 2019 spring. Sure. LDLC one with the Tinks lineup. Was that 2021 or 2020? One of those two. 2020. No, Heaver, you're talking about Misfits. About the leader Misfits. He's asking about LDLC, which was the Tinks lineup LDLC. Or the Had S lineup, depending on how you remember it. You could also think of it as the Yellow Star lineup. I know plenty do. Yeah, last spring was Istanbul Wildcats versus Unicorns. Unicorns aren't allowed in anymore? What do you mean by that? Istanbul Wildcats aren't here either. But to be clear, you guys have gone half a decade back for that. Isn't Unicorns part of the Russian Federation? You're talking about... So the... Okay, Unicorns of Love have two specific teams. Maybe we'll get into this, actually, instead. Unicorns of Love have two specific teams. They have the... They had the LCL team, which was the main team. And then they had a team in German League called the UOL Sexy Edition. And in Germany, after the LCL collapsed, Sheepy was moved over to the German side. He reached the finals every single split until this split. This split, they lost in the first round to Eintracht Spandau in a 5-game series. And then Eintracht Spandau 3-0'd AFW, 5 games versus NNO, 3-1 SK Prime, so Unicorns could make the argument that they were the second best team. It was a bit of an upset. Was a huge upset, to be honest. Unicorns normally just make it through here. They are the Giants Gaming in that regard. But then in terms of branding, I guess Eintracht are probably closer. It feels like last year. Well, it was half a decade ago, Heaver, to be clear. And people are talking about more recent French dominance, which is being entirely K-Corp. Who is the star player in BDS? Not a bad question, I guess. For me, it's Parus. Straight up. Like, for me, Parus is probably the best player in the whole ERLs. Are you satisfied with these LFL teams being in the EUM? Do you prefer any other? It's not like LVP, where I did have a strong preference. Nah. I was surprised BK Rog didn't go that much further, I guess. But otherwise, not really. No, I think these are probably the best teams that you could put in. I'm gonna be real with you, I think these were the best ones. LDLC had plenty of near misses. Like, LDLC's best time to win outside of the time they did win with Tinks was actually probably the Steelback lineup in 2019 summer. But they ended up against Bern International Gaming, who were their hard counters for a similar reason I just said. They ended up against that team in the quarterfinals, BO3. Wilson Kaori, Luga sweeps, but Kaori's good, sure. But I vastly prefer Luga. How Linker's playstyle is based on camp advantage, which is most played as Rel and third Vi. What do either of those have? Well, first off, Vi is like a really good jungler to play camp advantage with. But what do either of those picks have to do against that? That makes no sense. It's about movements on the map. Like movements on the map I just showed you. Though that's playing for camp advantage. I don't... What are you talking about? How does that... That isn't a counter to how they move on the map. They will sacrifice optimal lane patterns to defend and secure jungle. They will play camp advantage and camp denial on repeat. Why do you need a specific pick for that? That has nothing to do with picks. No, he's not a new Yike. Why would it be more suitable for a carry champ? Is there any Div 2 ERL players you think could push for EM qualification as shot at Tier 1? I have not watched Div 2. Mainter not playing from Ukraine pretty big. I don't know which way it will be big, because he could be very comfortable playing from Ukraine for all I know. As Vi, I have no idea where you'd say that. Vi is one of the best full clear junglers. Historically, she used to be played as like Trinity Force Rush. So with Vi, I don't know. With Rel, I could understand why you might say that, but like it doesn't have anything to do with playstyle there. You can play playstyle with any particular kind of champ. Like, it doesn't change what he's doing on the map, though, is the thing, right? Like, if you just watch what he does on the map, I don't... Ping? He had ping, yeah, but does that matter more than how he feels playing the game? Does that affect how he feels more than being removed from the environment he's been playing in thus far? Amsterdam. Well, they at least used to be in Amsterdam. I don't know if they changed. Hello, I'm very confused with the schedule. Why are the knockout playing teams also in the groups? Wait, what do you mean? The play-ins... What do you mean? The play-in knockout teams were playing for a spot in the main group. Everyone here won the knockout stage. So, like, Gentlemates beat Entropic 2-1... GK 1-2-0 into Matchco, Nigma 1-2-0 into Phantasma. Who was the other one? Boostgate. Very narrowly beat Spike Syndicate, way more narrowly than it should. So those guys are in, but their opponents aren't in anymore. I'm not sure what you mean. That's all these teams, right? Like, only the winners of the knockout stage are here. Okay, we'll move on to a different region now. Let's talk about... I mean, let's talk about Spain while we're at the beginning. Why is Riot not deleting LEC to keep ERL based? Alright. For me, this is the biggest inflection moment. Second biggest inflection moment that occurred in all of the ERLs. Okay? So anyone who's followed Spain a while is aware that Giants have the tendency to have plot armor. Giants have the tendency to have unconscionably bad regular splits, limp into playoffs, and just go all the way finals, if not win it. I've seen them win it from that position, right? Giants have immense plot armor. Then they meet Garçones. Garçones pretty much shouldn't be here. They went on a 5-win streak to make it in at all. For Giants, that's just normal, right? Giants went on a 6-win streak and barely got in. That's normal for Giants. Garçones gone on a 5-win streak. Knock my boys in KC Sports down, right? Which is just horrible, right? I thought KC Sports would be finalists, right? And then Case very narrowly lose to Giants because of this. And for me, it's like, great. Garçones denied me this being, like, here, maybe. Right? And then Garçones, in Game 3, are 2-0 down. Right? 5k goal behind. Losing draft. And then they reverse sweep Giants. So if we're going to talk about this, we really have to talk about why it's so insane. And it truly is that Garçones won any games at all. Alright? They lost draft, but they're also the only team I allow to play AD Kaiser. Right? Like non-LS build Kaiser. They're like the only team that makes it work. But anyone who was here for the LVP Grand Finals knows what I'm going to say. They know the story I'm going to weave to you because this is the only way I've found to adequately describe. What I just said when talking about the French teams, right, was about how differently their junglers enable them to play, and then we did some map-based stuff around Gentlemates and BDS, right? We talked about map movements, we talked about strategy, we talked about what happens in the game in a broad, 5-man, very nerdy sense. Eliminate all such worries when we talk about Garçones, okay? Garçones do not play the map. Really, League in general, right? What I have to do is take you all the way back to Africa 1941, right? Where the Germans are absolutely face-rolling the entirety of British Africa at that point, right? And they're using a specific strategy, okay, called Blitzkrieg, right? And the entire point of Blitzkrieg, right, the entire purpose of it, right, is that essentially, alright, you model yourselves as the tip of a spear, right? You ram yourself straight through the center. Jungle is now out, right, in this one. I don't know why Jungle was there in the first place. The enemies all split, right, and now you wrap around one of these areas, right? Now we just go into a 5v2 here after ramming our way through mid, right? That's what we do. You could think of it as a broader side strat, but we'll just think of it as a team fight strat, okay? Now, 3 generals later, and one because God himself put a German, 3 generals later, and one because God himself put a German in the firing line of one of their transport vehicles over Scotland by pure chance, we ended up with a general called Montgomery. And what Montgomery was like, okay, they're gonna do this, here's what we're gonna do, alright? They're gonna finally go for diving our midsection, right? Okay? And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna let them do it. We're just gonna move back, baby. We're gonna let them do it. Alright, and now what? Now guess what? While we've been doing this, our boys have been lapping around, and now we go in from all angles, boys. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hug them. And this is called the hedgehog maneuver. Alright? This is called the hedgehog maneuver. Okay? This is all Garçones do. Every single team fight. And I call it the Garçones stare. Okay? What they do is they'll get to a point in the game where they are late to every objective, right? Not contesting any side, right? And every objective matters. And you'll be doing it, right? You'll do Drake. Okay, you'll do Drake, alright? We're having a great time. And they're just there. Staring at you. They're staring, by the way. They're not poking you. They're not engaging on you. Maybe Gragas throws a barrel every now and again. They just stare at you, right? And you're like, okay, they're going to dive us at some point. They're going to split it. They don't. They don't. They stare at you. And then you're like, okay, we've done Drake, all right. Maybe we'll go and do Baron now. And then you'll start moving past and they'll just let you, right? They'll just fucking let you, right? And you'll be there, right? But they'll also be there, just a little bit behind. And they'll keep staring. And I've seen them do this for like 5 minutes straight sometimes, right? And you know what happens every time without fail? The enemy loses their fucking minds, right? They dive. They dive. And Garçones like, yes, baby. Do it! Because our AD Kaiser's now just found your jinx in the back. Because you've lost your patience. We've been hugging you this whole time. This whole time we've been doing this. We've actually been wrapping around the whole time we've been staring. And you lose. You lose the game. And I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, go watch, okay? This is how they've done. Every single one of these wins has been because they've stared at you. And I mean, they've done this from like 10k goal behind and won the game into the best teams in LVP. It's mental. I've never seen anything like this. If you want to be technical, it's just a hedgehog maneuver applied over and over and over again. But it's the Garçonna's stare. That's what it actually is. And it shouldn't work. But it does work in the wildest situations. And this is how they make the AD Kaiser that I mentioned before work, right? Because most people are like, we have a range disadvantage, we're going to play poke AP Kaiser, and then we'll, you know, delete them with a full combo or something. But this guy is part of the wraparound. He's not the midsection that falls back, right? He's part of the wraparound, right? And he'll just flank your jinx. Their Kaiser just flanks your jinx, but he's not doing it from the side lane. He's just been walking around like a Rakan this whole time, you know? And once your team abandons you, like everybody has become super massive for whatever reason. If you've been watching TC, you know what I mean by that, right? You are suddenly Luger, and you're all alone. And this Kraken Slayer Kaiser walks in on you, and just kills you. And you're like, this is illegal. How is this allowed to happen? But it's happened every time. And that's how they won. There is no clever map movement. There is no particular synergy. They just stare at you and you lose. It's hypnotic. Truly hypnotic. It shouldn't work, and yet they're here. I lost 7 bets against Garçonna's this split. Because in my ancient form of archaic brain League of Legends, right? Garçonna's just don't care. They just don't care. And I can't. Heretics, on the other hand, are a normal team. They're a human team. The big question was, how would they play without Zweiru, right? Because with Heretics, they are very much a win lane win game team. Xerxes is closer to like a white rather than a Skewmond, but basically the same kind of function there. Not full camp advantage. Definitely much more aggressive than he was in the EU incarnation before Australis. It's closer to the Australis one that is more invade heavy. So they're kind of like a version of Gentlemates in that regard. But I do think their bot lane is brilliant. Certus for me was like, I really liked that Zweiru would just maintain pressure no matter what, and you've seen how he's been able to do it in the LEC. But with Certus, it's like, for me, the best aspects of Certus are being able to play the map almost in absentia of jungle. And would he do that again? He kind of did. His first 2 games were literally the Certus I was hoping for, and then he just moved into like Akali Assassins, kind of like old... Was it Shulker? Was Certus... Yeah, Certus was the Shulker one, right? Yeah. Kind of like old Shulker Certus that played around very set-specific events, and I feel like that's a weaker form of Heretics than the one with Zweiru. But I still have a lot of faith in it. For me, that's going to be the reason why I'm not calling Heretics a full contender for the title. Is that I don't know the final form of this lineup with Certus, because they've tried both. They've tried the map movement Certus, and they've tried the side laning Certus, full assassin Certus. What I do know is that Xerxes is a great addition to the team. Because previously the lineup was designed to play with Blue Azure, who's more of the Yanko style jungler, the fireman jungler, right? And then with Xerxes, he has historically been more of a, you could say, LeBron jungler. Who is LeBron, not the basketball player, but the ERL player. LeBron is just AFK. He just doesn't do anything. He just farms. And Xerxes could have been that, because that is what he used to be, but he isn't that anymore, right? He's definitely more like a version of White now. White to count in the LFL, right? I miss when your name was White to count, even though I probably mispronounced it all the time, but I still loved it when that was your name. And that's really good for this team. And that can theoretically work super well with the map version of Certus, right? A lot of people love to shout Carlson. For me, Carlson's a little bit inconsequential on the lineup. Top laners have all been quite inconsequential on the Heretics lineup. If he is getting prior, they do play well around him. But for me, he isn't one of like the huge top laners to watch at the tournament. Insofar as you have people like Prime, you have people like Ragnar, you have a lot of good top laners at this tournament, right? Spuda, for me, is a little bit more exciting to watch than Carlson. And that's just partly because Carlson was on a team that was very much defined by the carry threat in mid AD carry and the ability of Whiten to play around that. Whiten, for its worth, was always a really, really strong map player as well. I remember he used to be like the guy that could beat the old G2 Arctic that is now MDK. I still really love him. Never give him a con. Anyway, do you talk about which team features will take the tight schedule as an advantage? That's such a... no idea. Ugh. Okay. Prime League. Actually, before that, any questions about LVP? Because I let you guys ask questions about LFL for a bit, and then you guys ask questions in general anyway. So just opening up for questions again before we move on to Prime League. You guys don't believe me now about Garsonas, but you will believe me when we're watching them. Why preference for Case? Insane, insane, insane. Good. Lux. This, for me, had the next best setup after the Heretics one, right? For me, I think the Heretics lineup is a model to be replicated. It is very similar to the MDK one, but with a very key difference. And Case was closest to modeling themselves off of that. For me, the big thing here would be Lux v Whiten, for me, is just fully in Whiten's favor. Lux is not really such a lane dominant support, and his way of playing map is more archaic than the way that Whiten understands it. So for me, Lux is he's not one of the really top tier. His reputation is definitely higher value to him right now than the absolute method in which he plays. To me, that was the bigger worry, because I really do believe in Javier. I think Javier is phenomenal. I've always talked up them Voxnay as being a potential rival to Jack Spectra. I was hoping LVP would be defined by that, and I've always loved Maxi as a full map jungler. So this lineup from the off, I thought that roster is insane. I wish it got a second split. It won't get a second split, because KC Sports is kaput. So for me, that was like, just from roster, that's an insane lineup, man. Welcome to the chat, Raven God. Teams that have a big coach advantage, probably just Unicorns of Love. That's it, really. I can't really speak to coaches. Man. Like, coach is a really difficult role to assess from the outset. The reason with Unicorns it's so easy is because Unicorns are the only organization that backs up their coach before their players. So their coaches have more room to grow than any other coach in the entirety of the West. And it has shown with their results. And there's a very consistent manner in which their teams play, even if all 5 have been subbed out. I am personal friends with Edward. But that doesn't mean that I can assess all of the other coaches that Edward is competing with. And for me to praise a coach, it will always be relative to every other coach. I can say that Unicorns has a specific advantage that all the other coaches don't. Biggest weakness of LVP teams? Yeah, their drafts are shit. Like, really bad, by the way. On both sides, Jack has fallen for the Aphelios meme against heavy range. So, like, it definitely feels very player underdrafts. Garçones do not get adequately punished as much as they really should. With Garçones, Farfetch is the guy here that understands the map. Yes, Sheepy's dad is the owner and that is why. Farfetch is literally the only guy on Garçones that understands the map, but that is enough. That's at least enough given that they will never win a game via insane map understanding. So there is something to be said, by the way, about how good Farfetch is in general. Sizifek, for me, is insane. He's one of my big players to watch of all of the new guys coming into the tournament. Full on Lee and Al Gaib vibes. He's the only guy that we will allow to build AD Kaiser, because they can make that work there. Spooder is funny, I'll give him that. But the general weakness is that their drafts are fucking shit. Their drafts are abysmal. LFL will probably win a lot of games against them in drafts and then lose to Garçones anyway. Like, what I really will hate is if I describe everyone and Garçones just win anyway. Because those Garçones have ways in which they win games. I am not sat there thinking they should win. And I can never commit to saying that they will win. Right? But if they do win, it's like I'm not surprised. You know? I'm just sad. Like, I know Apple's personally as well, right? But it's like, I don't know any of the guys he's against, right? Alright, we'll do Prime League if there are no other questions. Alright! Whose drafts are shit? Heretics and Garçones. Everything about Garçones is shit and then they win. It's that simple. They take all of that shit and then they toss it on the enemy and then it's over. Alright. I was a big fan of two of these teams. Alright. One was Austrian Force Wilhelben, who are basically a Prime League team. Sorry, basically a Ultraliga team. And the other one was NNO. NNO have a mid laner called Seven. I thought Seven was brilliant. I really wanted to see this guy in the finals, in the main stage of EMEA Masters. Yeah, Trayson was the best top laner in all of Prime League for sure, and I want to see him at EMEA Masters as well. S-Kick is also a phenomenal mid laner still, right? I thought S-Kick Seren would be two brilliant mids to take through, right? How do I explain this? Prime League has one massive weakness that you're not really going to say or see talked about that much because they're only sending two teams, right? Yeah, they are. They're only sending two teams, or NNO would be in. This is probably the single worst jungle pool in all ERLs. And that ultimately is why Zanzibar was able to move through. So what I was talking about with LFL, they're all, at best, Skewmond. If that. Skewmond's honestly a lot better than them. It's not really a good way to put it. They all are... Nah, yeah, I mean, they're not all playing for lane either. They are all extremely binary with the sole exception of Zanzibar. Right? Lurox, no. Lurox basically lost Unicorns their series. Lurox and Tolandi lost Unicorns their series. Piero was insane on Unicorns. And then Tolandi was just getting absolutely fisted. But Piero was really fucking good. Zanzibar was pretty much the only guy thinking about more than one thing on the map at any one point in the entire playoffs. And that, to me, is the biggest reason why. Because Eintracht Spandau have two very, very crucial factors in how they win, right? One is Power of Evil is a really, really consistent team fighter, but in a very basic manner. This guy will do damage when he does not think he is going to be taking a significant amount himself. So if he's given that room, right, and if he has a lot of HP, he will do his job in the fights. If he doesn't, he ain't gonna be that guy going for the straight hero play. But the unique thing about how BO5s work in playoffs in League is that the further along you get, the more powerful having that kind of player is. Because people are too scared to make errors. This is probably best shown in Game 5 of the NNO Eintracht series and the Unicorns Eintracht series, especially the Unicorns Eintracht one. Because the Unicorn Spandau series, when it got to Game 5, was like nothing until Baron, and then like a 5-minute long perpetual Baron contest where everyone was perpetually respawning. Because that's how it is when you're in Game 5. No one wants to be the reason that you lose. And within all of that hesitation, Power of Evil is in its full comfort zone. Right? That is the best part of PoE. Now, Zanzibar, being a full map jungler with a very, very, very strong sense of what to do at any one point, he wasn't that in regular season. But in playoffs, the switch turned, and he was that guy again, right? And suddenly everything Lurox was missing, or everything that Addy was missing, which could be a lot. Basically, if Addy wasn't enabled to play around top lane and had to play around bot lane, the synergy between Addy and Woolite was like in the worst way. Or the fact that Rabble is still Rabble, which is basically a LeBron jungler. Or the fact that Schlatin's idea of a gank is to, like, try to hypnotize the enemy laner into making a massive fuck up. And the most aggressive he ever was when Jack Troll, who we'll talk about later, yes, he's still playing, was leading him into the enemy jungler on Misfits Premier. Were they called Premier at that time? Misfits Academy team. Suddenly that was huge, because he was now giving Power of Evil the room to play the Power of Evil team fights. He was the early game, he was the map, he was the advantage, he was the tempo, he was everything. And that's not to say Vertigo was bad, or Lilith was bad, or Funky was bad, but this was the biggest difference on the map at any one point, because there are supports that can test Lilith. There are a lot of ADs, right? Neon might be the best AD in all of the ERLs right now, though he is former LEC, so that's a bit cheating. Who can contest Funky? There are mids who can contest PoE. I still think that Seren is better than PoE. PoE is very binary in this particular manner, right? And Vertigo, I think Vertigo probably performed individually the best relative to all of their competition out of all of them except for Zanzibar. So shoutouts to him, but he is in a stacked pool. Like, Venor is insane. Trassin was fucking mental. I've shouted him out a lot. But with Zanzibar, there was no peer. There was no equal. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even slightly close. It was disgusting. This guy is Prime League jungle. That's how they did this one. This is a miracle one that they did here, man. I don't know if you guys have actually been looking at this while I've had this open, so I will zoom this in for you. But to make this completely clear, 5-game series in round 1 into 3-0 into reverse sweep 3-2 against NNO into 3-1-ing SK Prime, who barely got out of NNO themselves. This was NNO's league, right? This was their league to win, alright? They should have been coming into EMEA Masters swinging. They could have been legit. People kept asking me which team was going to win. It was like, for now, I'm thinking BDSA Heretics, but NNO, I really need to see because I haven't watched enough Prime League yet, blah, blah, blah. They didn't even make it because it all turned on at the right time for Spandau in one very, very particular manner, which is why I was just saying, like, that guy's playoffs MVP. No one could hold a candle to what this guy's doing. And apparently Crownly flamed him, so... Oh, yeah, the NNO series is an absolute banger. Like an absolute banger. Ugh. Don't forget Eintracht's beautiful coaches. I heard these guys are mega stunning. Okay, let me see. Right, not bad, not bad. There's a sense of style in Prime League that is really consistent, to be honest. It shows really well on the desk as well. They have this bow tie guy, who I think is just one of the best dressed people in like the whole Prime League. So I'll at least give you guys that. But the Zanzibar does run the whole league, and I have to give him that. All right. Oh. Anyway, I think it is Alanio is probably his name, yes. There's him there, and then in LVP there's Beeb. Okay, let's move on. So we've done Prime, we've done LVP, we've done LFL. I mean, let's do TCL. Yeah, let's just finish off all the main ones. I just wonder if I'm contractually obligated to say NLC before TCL, but realistically, this is much more interesting, right? So TCL have 3 slots going in. Right? 3 slots going. What, bro? We're 1 hour and 18 minutes in. I'm not even vaguely done. Okay, first off, I want to get something out the way. Alright, I really want to get something out the way. Right? I actually don't think Arma is really far ahead of the rest of Turkish top lane. I'm not including Tag Young-hoon here. Right? I actually really like Starscreen. I really like Fabulous. I really like all of these kinds of players. Just get that out of the way. Next off, Ferret was insane for me. I hate the fact that he isn't here. I blame Kiba every day, and I hope Kiba blames himself. That's a joke. I like Kiba. Let me say where I fall on a very, very particular debate. Okay? I think Luger is better than Kaori overall, but Luger's team plays around him much worse than Kaori's team plays around him. With Supermassive, there feels like there's so often a point in team fights where Luger is just alone, and the whole team is full dived, because even if there are other ways to play, that team will only ever dive. They don't play as juggernauts. They don't do any of that kind of stuff with Luger. Luger is left to his own devices, and what will be, will be. This puts them in a unique position to make Jinx not work. Which is fascinating sometimes to witness. Now, for me, Papara Supermassive reminds me a lot of that Misfits Academy lineup that I hinted to in the Prime League thing with Jack Troll Slatten. Right? Vander is a coach now? Wait, is he... Wait. I didn't even know he was coaching for... That's... Okay, I actually didn't know. Jack Troll and Skeens operate very similar to how Jack Troll Slatten used to operate, which to me says that Jack Troll is the big dog, right? Or Jack Troll is holding the leash and Schemes is the dog. So Schemes I used to describe him as a skirmish-heavy jungler, and by used to, I mean like over half a decade ago. And what I meant by that was that he was a guy who would heavy contest neutral objectives in groupings and look for flanks, look for engages, look for that sort of thing, and that was the primary way by which he accelerated the game. This version of Schemes on Supermassive takes a more active role in the enemy jungle, but most of that is off Jack Troll priority, Jack Troll in the lead, Jack Troll being the primary engage, and that to me feels like a very consistent thing about Jack Troll's team's post-Vitality. He takes the reins in that very particular regard and drags his jungler along with him for all of those, and Schemes is the latest one being caught in, I guess, the Jack Troll gravitational well. I have one for Noodle, maybe you could have one for Jack Troll as well, but for me I always think of it as Jack Troll's leash, right? Yeah, Schemes is skirmish heavy in Vitality. I can't assess his influence on Foot, no, because I don't know all the players on it. Contrast this with Boostgate. So Boostgate have a very psychopathic bot lane that I've talked about a lot before, at least during TCL streams. So if you weren't here for the TCL streams, we'll obviously be going over this again. I love Ruep. I love how all-in and how heavy he is on that regard. I love the fact that he plays a little bit like mini caps in the early stages in the sense of his approach to these early 2v2s. The best way to describe him is if you are Polish, you have seen this guy, it's Orbit Anonymo's bot lane, right? Like Orbit Anonymo's bot lane and Boostgate Esports bot lane function very, very, very similarly, including the role of God, what was his name? It's not Shizifek, because Shizifek's lane is now just in my head perma, but the support for that is very similar to Carry's function as well. And then Chef is the big difference between that Orbit and Anonymous lineup and this one, because Chef is not Afro Boy. Chef is a very, very strong camp advantage jungler. He isn't playing it as Mini Milky Way and his 4 wards in the way K-Corp does. You're not going to get Ruep doing what Khalees does and backing up his jungler in really early phases of the game. You're not going to see him do that. No, not even vaguely like Farfetch. You're not going to see him do that. But you are going to see Chef play for camp advantage, play to shut down enemy jungler. You might be thinking, is he going to say kind of like White? No, it's definitely more like Linkus, right? Like, he will match enemy jungler if he sees him and if he knows that will get his lanes going well, but his purpose with that will be to get a bigger camp advantage over him if need be, because it changes depending on the jungler he has. So if he is playing on Nocturne, for example, that guy from earlier, who brought up the Rel Vi thing, if he's playing Nocturne, he will be playing for a camp advantage in his own jungle before necessarily matching enemy. But if he's on a skirmish heavy one like Volibear, that camp advantage will be best expressed in those invades, which shuts down enemy jungle's potential motions to stop his psychopathic bot lane going all in all the time, stuff like this, right? Chef has such a good read on the map at every point. He's one of my favorite junglers in the ERLs right now. Then you have the Koreans on Boostgate, right? You have the double Koreans on there. So you have Taekyung and you have Nakyung. Nakyung is basically Korean Ica. Ica is extremely consistent on Gentlemates. Nakyung is extremely consistent on Boostgate. He will never be the reason that you lose the game. He'll literally never. Contrast that with Taekyung. Taekyung will either solo lose you the game, or he will make some insane, absurd teamfight play that wins the whole game for you while facing lane. There's no two ways about this guy. If this guy makes one mistake, that's the game you're getting from him. It's going to be a series of calamities. The whole map will be on fire, and Taekyung will have to foot the bill. Or it falls heads up, and the coin dictates that Taekyung's going to have a good game. Nakyung is the opposite. But Taekyung frustrates me sometimes, especially because the first games I saw from him were so universally good. I thought he would be on my approved Koreans list. Piero's instead there. Taekyung is being described to you as I am describing him to you right now. So then we get Besiktas, right? So we will get onto the rest of the players on Supermassive, don't worry. Then we get to Besiktas. I think Paidia is the best Turkish support in Turkey. I think teams should look at him. 100% I think teams should look at this guy. I think he's the real fucking deal. And right now he's paired with Kaori. You will now have noticed I've spoken about basically all the bot lanes here first and foremost. There seems to be a thing in Turkey where the conversation in Turkey is based around bot in a similar way to how the conversation happening in-game in LFL is happening around jungle. Right? LFL, very jungle-centered. Turkey seems to be very bot lane-centered. This has led to them having a severe amount of top talent in the support role across all the leagues. There are 17 Turkish players at EMEA Masters, and all of the supports are insane. So Paidia within Turkey is that guy, but if you go back to the LFL one, right, you have Fleshy and you have Paris on their top two teams coming in as well, Paris possibly being the best player in all the ERLs, right? So I think the reason why is because for ages, your way out of the region was via Holy Phoenix, right? And I think the Holy Phoenix era really set the terms for how Turkish talent would develop, right? You would either do a Zeitnot and be like the guy who could contest Holy Phoenix, right? And this led to the next generation of AD carries like Luger, like Kaori, like now Ruep, right? And yes, by the way, the guy is still here, okay? Or it led to the other method, which is be the support of all of these AD carries who are trying to outdo each other in a similar manner to how Brazil's AD carries tried to outdo each other a decade ago. Wow. And so this has led to the state of play that we're at. You have a series of very, very strong talents in bot lane in Turkey, and if you want to talk about any of these teams, you first have to start with how they are using that. This does make Papara Supermassive a bit of an outlier versus all of the teams, because Papara Supermassive don't begin and end that conversation with their AD carry, probably because they aren't really Turkish. I know you guys claim blue, but it's very, very much the Jack Troll schemes dynamic that defines Supermassive more than anything, whereas Ruet being a Psycho and Chef playing to enable that is a big part of Boostgate. Otherwise it feeds back into Chef himself, and Ruet still takes a big part in fights. Besiktas is very bot lane heavy, very bot lane favoured, and Besiktas' big thing against Supermassive when they beat Supermassive the first round, they had a similar story to France, by the way, where in the first round, Besiktas stomped Supermassive, and in the second round, Supermassive kind of came back. It was a reverse sweep straight up into Besiktas. So not as dominant a switch, but still a switch. Besiktas with Osman was more of like a collapse on those invades that Supermassive was doing, right? Anything big and proactive happened around enabling the aggression on bot. But the invades coming in through Jack Troll schemes would just get collapsed on over time by Besiktas lanes. That was more how they were winning on that first series. And how they were winning at all. Then Osman kind of lost his mind as we were getting through the grand finals. It was kind of strange to see. I hope he's doing better now. Because he is good. And I'm pretty sure I've seen him in my chat. So I know he has fantastic taste in jungle coaches. So he's probably going to be a lot better on this one. But the response to those invades was how they were winning. They need to be clear on that. Right? They need to be clear on that, because when they face the French teams, that's the big one. Right? That's where the way they beat Supermassive was a really good training grounds for potentially beating the French teams. And then we get to blue, Armor. Yes. Nar. Yes. Very similar player that he was before. Hoon would be your 1v0 top laner if you're looking for that concept. If you don't know what a 1v0 top laner is, I've talked about the whole split, but probably loads of you here never watched me the whole split, so I'll just tell you once again. A 1v0 top laner, and Tracing was this, Prime was this, blah blah blah. We have to reset this whole thing. How do I reset this? Yeah, reset everything. That did not reset shit. There you go. A 1v0 top laner. Why is the map like this? Who knows? This is kind of realistic. This is terrible. Anyway, imagine the map being like this, right? Imagine it being something like this. This is your 1v0 top laner. He is a guy who, instead of grouping with everyone here, is like, okay, I will just outpush this for tempo while everybody clears, right? And stares at each other. You know, that's what he's thinking. That's a 1v0 top laner. A guy who recognizes those opportunities and stalls out the game by doing that. That's a 1v0 top laner, right? Prime in Orbit Non-Ultraliga is that. Tracing in Prime League is that. And Hoon was performing this function beautifully in Besiktas games, and was thus able to stall out games long enough for I Will Dominate to win money betting on game time in the grand finals. So good job to him. I hope you get your cut. But yeah, that's probably the best description I can give of all of these teams right now, right? Supermassive do not have a big map thing outside of those perpetual invades that I was talking about, right? They straight up do not have one. They are very dependent on that aggression and on maintaining that aggression for the rest of the game, because they don't have a big map thing to talk about. That leads to a big disadvantage against most teams, that they can't just out team fight, and then even in those team fights, they just abandon their AD carry, and it is maddening to watch. They can still win, but they are not going to do the straight wide map states of Boostgate. They're not going to get the 1v0 opportunities that Besiktas do. That's not how they win games. They play rugby. It's still Vitality 2018, it's just taken a different form. Jack Troll has never let go of that particular team and that particular playstyle. He didn't let go of it on Misfits, which had a better idea of how to play those wide states, but that was definitely because of how Aggressivo played top lane. Armut's not doing that whatsoever. That is a fighting team, right? You do not match them. You match away from them and trade up, and you will get the opportunities to do that. But the closer you get to Game 5, as Besiktas showed us, the less likely you are to be willing to trade up, the more likely you will get in those staring contests, and you don't stare at the bull. You don't stare at the bull, alright? That's what Supermassive are, right? Which does make this quite an appropriate logo, I will say. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. But you don't stare at the bull, alright? None of these are bulls. Yeah, they aren't. I don't know what's going on here, right? It's a B, it's a G, it's a rocket. I don't know what they're channeling there. I don't know what they're channeling. Well, owls are smarter, so I don't like it anymore. You shouldn't have told me that. Who you got winning then? Bro. You're just spoiling the ending. What are you doing? You've no sense of story structure. Okay? Anyway. Alright, we're back here now. So we've done LFL, LVP, Prime League, TCL. Alright? What do we do next? What do we do next? Because my instincts is actually to do Ultraliga before Arabian League. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way. Okay. If you know anything about me, it's that I have this one lie that I tell repeatedly, alright? This is me breaking God's commandments, okay? And that big lie, like, if I ever say this, you know I'm lying, alright? my big lie is I will make a video about it, right? And I have been intending to make a video about Back to the Game about 50 odd times. I've probably said it, right? At least Ultraliga in general, right? I even reached out to a guy who I would end up having translate it, but I just never made the video, right? This region, first off, actually, I just want to say, alright, if you are out there, alright, in the unlikely event, big Devils 1 fan, wish you guys had gone further. You did deserve to go further. I don't ever rate coaches, but because I loved you guys so much, I'll blame your coaches. Fire them all. This region was essentially defined by whether or not you were countered by Back to the Game or not. Back to the Game was LS's wet dream. Literally, if LS watched this team play, he would be jacking off in the corner, losing his Twitch partner faster than you could catch him slandering women on Twitter, okay? Or playing Malzahar for 30 minutes straight to win an argument. Back to the Game weren't just doing the LS build, right? At 14 minutes, these guys would just freeze the fucking wave on side lanes, no matter how far ahead they were, slow push them out, play maximum economy. It was these guys definitely just like watching LS. There's literally no way that they don't, right? They were the biggest, like, slow push freeze team I've ever seen in my life. No other ERL team did it like Back to the Game did in that regard. It slowed every mid-game. At every mid-game, they slowed it down, even when they could play hard for prio. They seemed to be somewhat cognizant of the disadvantage it could put them in, right? Because you'd have situations where, like, Olaf has no wave to play for, because Karma is slow pushing out on the other side of the map. He can't get a group lean in towards his side to catch, and he wants that side to be bouncing into him anyway, but he's useless in the grouping now. So what the fuck do? All the camps are gone. We're just praying the enemy doesn't realize they win the map if they just press the Karma lane. That's what you're terrified on. And Ultraliga became whether or not you were terrified of what they were doing and confused by it, or whether or not you realized they were giving you map tempo for free. Only one team really truly passed that test, and that was not Zero Tenacity. The guys you may be seeing 3-0'd Orbit and Onimo in the grand finals. Zero Tenacity failed this task, failed this test, failed this basic test of brain, right? But I think through failing it, they learned enough to do that 3-0, as well as bribing the technician in the stadium to delay the whole series by 3 hours after playing 12 minutes of the first game. Because against Back to the Game, the fact that Z10 had a Season 5-esque understanding of macro really bit them in the arse. And it bit them in the arse against Orbit and Onimo as well, right? In the first series that Orbit and Onimo won, because Orbit and Onimo would win their games with a really good free lane play.
And of course, Veteran retweets it like 4 months later.
First things first, and we have to get this out the way, right? Alright? As big a fan of Ultraliga as I am, right? There's no early game. It's not a concept. Right? It's not a concept. Right? They don't do it. I wouldn't even say they have a reactive early game. They just kind of stall. They don't play on any of the neutral timings early, and the only consistent jungle player that seems to have an idea of what he wants to do is Blue Azul, who's a reactive jungler that plays more in like the white style if you want to go back to the LFL trifecta. And he is every advantage Z10 can get in the early phase. Him versus Afro Boy was always very interesting, because even though his team didn't seem to be fully on board with what he wanted to be doing, he would always try to make some form of straight invade work, sitting on Afro Boy, not letting him play the game, just try to disable enemy jungler from being even more reactive. It is just a lot of reactions happening there, and within that, Back to the Game could pull off the run that they pulled off. Once you get into late game, or mid to late game, that's when you get a big differentiation. So Orbit and Anonymous would start winning by 2 particular ways. Alright? Well, if you subscribe Just Can, you can just go, yeah, like Fumi's linked it to you. What was I saying? Orbit and Anonymous have 2 particular ways of getting control of the map. First off is the way they explode the map, and that would happen the same way every time. Orbit and Anonymous are red here. This guy would find some kind of a 1v0 situation because this guy is like making a play bot or something. And then this guy is Roizen. Roizen would find a really good TP opportunity to match whatever play his opponent just made and either stall it out or counter it fully while Prime got the map back. Sometimes they would both burn their TPs to counter if they would get a numbers advantage. But these guys using their TPs to counter opponents' aggression is how they would get the map. Because after doing that, these 2 guys would hold a ridiculously good stalling 1-3-1 for the rest of the game. And I loved watching it. Roizen, you may remember from LVP, he was on that Origin BCN lineup. Don't know if I'm speaking a different language to you guys right now, but he was on that lineup and he was so fucking good whenever he was playing with it, right? Like, I love watching Prime find these 1v0 moments, right? The 1v0 concept we were talking about earlier. He would consistently find this and just ram it up to tier 2. He would always find this, and Roizen would always find a way to do a similar thing in kind. Like a version of Mystics Premier Spring 2019, right? Like something like that. They were so good together at controlling the map in this way. This made them deadly to Back to the Game. Because if Back to the Game did their attempts at freeze, Orbit and Anonymous would just naturally annihilate that. Now, what happened with Z10 is at the same time as this was ever happening, Z10's counter push basically ends here, and then everyone just fucking groups. And then they just try to 5-man mid. Maybe they tried to find angles, but they would just push past creek, go mid, fight. Push past creek, go mid, fight. Push past creek, go... And I know in their heads, it was probably more complicated than that. It's probably like, actually, we had a really good window here, or we had to respond here, or blah, blah, blah. You didn't. You didn't have to do that. 9 out of 10 times, you just gave up the map, and Orbit and Anonymous ran you around doing that, because they were not as good at fights as Z10. Z10's lineup is immensely full of talent. Right, this is the Z10 lineup. It's Melanic, it's Blue Azor, Kofta is one of the best mids in all of the leagues right now. Harpoon is one of the best, I guess you could say, rookie AD carries right now. And if you give a Dote Nautilus, you've asked to lose the game. I guarantee that, by the way. If you give this guy Nautilus, it's a fucking highlight reel. But their way of playing the map was so restrictive, Orbit and Anonymous could just avoid it. The times that they couldn't avoid it into Z10 was when Blue Azor did those invades and they turned into earlier skirmishes. Because if you can force these guys to fight, you can beat them. And Blue Azor could force that in the very, very early parts of the game, right? And that's when Z10 got advantages that they were able to play with, that they were able to engage on. But even then, a Z10 advantage would take them like 35 minutes to close out, but an Orbit Anonymous advantage, the game was over in 27 max, you know? Because Orbit Anonymous get the map. They understand how to set it in a way where they can get something no matter what, right? And Z10 did not. They still fell back on this. And then the finals did sort of indicate that they have an understanding of the map, but it's difficult to tell because of how much of a stomp it was. Whether that was learning from their horrible experience against Back to the Game, where when Back to the Game start doing their LS freezing thing, right, where they are like slow pushing from here for fucking 50 years, right? It's difficult to tell when, because their response to that is just to fucking group, if they learned from doing that so much that that they decided to learn the map basically against Orbit and Onimo, or if they were just so far ahead of Orbit and Onimo that they no longer felt so scared that they need to go mid all the time, you know? I can't tell which one it is, whether they learned from their back to the game experience or whether they were just that far ahead on stage against Orbit and Onimo. I really don't know. I really don't know. You know, I really don't know. Can you use the new version of Rift Kit? Why? Okay, this would better be insane. I'm not joining your fucking Discord. This looks so basic. Soul. Soulless. Do you understand? It has the new map. I'm sorry. Does this break your brain? Are you incapable of just adding it yourself? Yes? Well, at least you're honest. Alright, we'll use this one from now on. Oh. Okay, any questions about Ultraliga? Oh, W Quads, I didn't thank you before, by the way. Thank you for 21 months in the army, my man. Thank you so much. How shit will they... This will be... Italy and Arabian League are stronger. They are definitely stronger. Z10 have to out-team fight everyone. Or they have to become a different team than they were in Ultraliga. One of the two. Z10 have absurd talent on their lineup. They can win every team fight. They can. But that's how they win. Because right now, all those other teams in Italy and Arabian League are more practiced on these map concepts, especially Arabian League. Do you miss color playing Ultraliga? Nope. Again, cheers for all of the responses on my co-streaming announcement. I really do appreciate it, man. It feels really good. I love these leagues, man, and I love these players. The orgs are so-so, but I love everything else. Alright. Okay, 7487. Are you asking me who you are going to gamble on? Okay, Vision Bets knows the answer to that is typically no. So I don't know why he's asking it. Alright, if there's no more questions about Ultraliga, we'll just move on. Hey Tenki, what's up? Alright, Arabian League or Italian League? Yes, I'm saving NLC for the end. I would prefer Arabian League because there's two teams in it. And Italian League is just one team left, and NLC is just one team left. So we're gonna do... I've made the choice. I have made the choice. Alright, we're talking about Arabian League. Why does it click to play in here? There you go. First off, shout outs Fox Gaming. Alright, Atlas, great. Scood, brilliant. Though not really Arabian. So fuck you, Scood, actually. Go away. Get your own job. Akashi, though. Akashi from this lineup. Mwah. Bravissimo. Until Giyu just ran him up and down the last two games. But Akashi is insane. Alright, so shoutouts to him. And the curious thing about Akashi and Giyu, other than the particular matchup I just talked about, right, which was in this series, the particular thing about them, right, is both of them, as far as I know, both have played in North American organizations at two different points. I know Giyu was on EG. Akashi may have also been on EG. Let me check. I know Akashi spent time there, and I know they both got rank 1 on the NA server. Whatever this is, St. Clair College. So they've both spent time over there. I know that Gyu was on EG's academy team. It's called EG Academy. Let me see. Yeah, it was EG Academy. And in that time, they both got rank 1 on the NA server. So these are probably two guys that randomly the Americans are familiar with and the Europeans aren't. Gyu pretty much ran Arabian League when it was... So Arabian League was, in the last year and a bit, is now a proper league, right? And before that, it was a open circuit series of tournaments similar to how France used to be the French Open Tour, if you remember that. That, for me, was the best format literally ever. You got some insane stories that were able to happen, like Gamers Origin coming in out of nowhere, Gentlemates destroying the Gamers Origin dynasty that itself destroyed the LDLC dynasty, all this stuff, right? They used to have that, except Gyu just won. Gyu was their mini faker, right? And when it came to the big Arabian League last year in spring, they built a team around Gyu with Sartorius, with Viking, and that team did really well in play-ins. It got to groups, but it did meet really, really good teams the whole way, top 4 teams the whole way, Wildcats, for example. They were very competitive with them. This has been the league to watch if you wanted to see the future of the ERLs, because it has really solid talent, like Boda. So, a lot of people have mentioned Boda in my chat while I've been talking about all of the other regions, and if you are confused about who the fuck that guy is one of the best top laners in all the ERLs right now. I'm really confident saying that. He's extremely young. He just turned 18. He turned 18 yesterday as he was qualifying. Through play-ins. And the story of NGX versus GK has been a really interesting one throughout the whole split. Because these two teams, now we can eliminate Fox. Alright, you're out. Alright, no one cares about you anymore. We care about you a bit. The story of NGX and GK has been really, really interesting the whole split. NGX were the team to beat for most of Arabian League this split. And then GK were the team that actually beat them. I think they were on like 9 wins before they got defeated by GK the first time. Never call a Garsonas matchup, okay? GK were able to beat them because the thing GK are really, really good at, and it is tempting to credit this to the coach, but the thing that they're really good at is this particular amount of vision control that they get around their lanes in late game, right? They're really good at playing the vision game. It really chokeholds the options you have on side lanes against them. And Decamp v Clowns is a really good way to try to measure the state of the league. But the games ultimately ended up coming down to other areas, whether Gyu was having a really, really on day, or whether Boda was just straight up solo winning topside to such an extent that every single contest would just go in their favor. Bong apparently has a rep. People keep coming in my chat and be like, oh, that's Bong, and that he was like playing on really good teams before and blah, 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 but like he gets run up and down by this Boda kid, alright? And whether that makes him Boda's good or not, Boda is seriously fucking good. Elwamir is still one of my favorite junglers. I still really like watching him play. But topside there was defined elsewhere, unfortunately. Both these teams have also lane swapped. So, GK lane swapped against Gentlemates to beat them. Yes, GK did beat Gentlemates, but obviously Entropic was taking game with Gentlemates. Maybe Gentlemates just not that good. They do adapt really, really fast to these metas. GK doesn't have a full understanding of what makes lane swap good, but they have understanding enough of when teams are reliant on playing specific lane setups. So they are a good scouting team as well, and that helped them against Nigma in particular too. They did fall apart in the grand finals against Nigma Galaxy. Nigma learned those kinds of big map plays from GK. So similar to how we're going to talk about Italian League. Italian League, ended up becoming a lot of matching around these particular objectives because of one team being so dominant on it. GK being really big about certain map things forced Nigma to step up their style, so they are a very good complete map team as well. And this has just made the region very, very, very powerful coming in. I was singing their praises before the tournament. Arabian League is the league to watch. They do have the makings competitively of a major region, but we know that isn't the big thing you need. And to be clear, before people say, okay, whereas it is Arabian League, it doesn't mean the Saudi Arabian League. There are Saudi Arabian teams, but there are a lot of teams from Egypt, Morocco, what have you, right? UAE, all of that. Like, it's the whole Middle East, North Africa area. This is not the same thing as the World Cup that's happening soon. All this stuff, right? It is a separate series of entities. And this does cause problems for them as a region, in the sense that, like, Egypt is the obvious place for them to be conducting most of their LAN finals and all this stuff, because it's just easier to get everybody going in towards Egypt. It's cheaper to do things there. But then, like, Tunisia feels like they are being left out, right? All of the players in Morocco feel they're being left out. The audiences, I should say, feel they're being left out. They have it's kind of like a mini NLC. It's the best way to think about it, where NLC is the Nordics and the UK and Malta for whatever reason. This is the whole Middle East, North Africa area, and they have business-wise all the same problems as it, but you're not here for me to talk about that for ages. I have talked about that for ages. I'm happy to talk about that for ages again. You'll just hear about the teams. They play a complete map. They have really, really good players. They have really good lanes. They have really good supports. They have really good understanding of League of Legends in general as a fundamental thing. It's a fucking good competitive region coming into the tournament, and they shouldn't be underestimated. They are the reason that the groups are as balanced as they are, and I do think the groups are balanced right now. Yeah, but it's also just cheaper to get everyone to Egypt, as far as I know. Like, it's just very convenient to grab people in for Egypt. So, just click main event. So now we talk about the two teams we haven't talked about yet, so Desire and Lions Creed. Do you guys mind if I just do them together? I mean, it's actually really weird to do them together because... Wait, this guy's called Baguette Coach? Wait, what? Why do you need 3 coaches? Okay. Let's just do Italian League, fuck it. So, you guys must understand something. Yeah, LFL's the first region I did. TLDR of that is that LFL is very... Okay, first off, is there any more questions about Arabian League before I move on? I should say that. And then while I dare say that, I will answer that guy. Yes, I did do LFL at the start. LFL is a very interesting jungle conversation happening in LFL. And they're all jungle-centric teams. I described the differences between them in that regard. But if you sub, you can see that in the VOD. Otherwise, I'll upload it to YouTube tomorrow. I'll just upload the whole thing to YouTube and publish it tomorrow. Gotta rate groups? Yeah, at the end. At the end, like, after I've gone through every team, we will then go through the groups and the dynamics in the groups. Why you never talk about Boda? Okay. Serious questions. Arabian League have chance? Yes. What part of what I just said indicate... How do they play? I just went over that. I hate you guys sometimes. Do you think they can make it out of groups? I mean, we'll get into that at the end. Does anyone have any more specific questions on things I've already said about Arabian League teams? I guess it's probably the best way to ask. Probably the way I'll get trolled the least. Probably. Do you think NGX is still better? God, it's a difficult one. The problem with NGX... I'll just put them up again. Why do you make me click play in, bro? The real problem with GK is they don't have two side laners that can match Boda de Hast at any one time, and now Boda de Hast are playing out side lanes properly later on, right? That's the big problem. And then when it is a full teamfight angle, no one is able to match Boda's angles onto Leo, and Leo just loses his mind sometimes, right? And it's primarily a Bong issue, right? Like, I feel like Giyu versus de Hast is much more even. Bong versus Boda isn't even close, and Bong versus de Hast also isn't really close. So, that's their biggest issue right now. I would say, I do believe NGX is better right now, but GK have consistently become smarter over the course of splits that I feel like they could still just outthink them on the map, you know? The way that they did Gentlemates, for example. So for now, I'd say NGX is better. Do you think AL will stop? Only via pressure from their public. If GK buys Boda, they would be the best. That would be a massive issue for Nigma if they bought him, yeah. In my opinion. Alright, let's move on. Atleta Esports not being here is weird. Okay? Atleta Esports were absolutely fisting everybody and their mothers for the regular split. Did they ever put... No, I think they went 13-1 in regular, if memory serves. Memory serves me very well this time. 13-1 in the regular split. When did they get their loss? Right at the end! Right at the end! Oh, no, baby! How do you do this? Oh, that's painful, actually. Alright, anyway. Classic. Absolute classic. Anyway, this was an Atleta-dominated region. And I had a whole thing about how they lost. But that doesn't matter as much as the fact that Matchco and Desire are definitely straight up better teams than them. For two very, very different reasons, and it's because these are the guys that have made it in, right? Well, Matchco haven't made it in fully. The good thing about Matchco was that they did contest every neutral objective timing early. They had an awareness of all of those, and it was being led by Click. So we do need to at least briefly touch on Click, because I did talk about it more in the play-ins thing, but I will reiterate it for anyone who wasn't here for the play-in stuff, right? But Click has spent his entire career with map-based junglers like Ekkas, for example, or like Seaboy, or guys, or Tax is probably a better example, like guys with a very, very, very strong idea on how they want to play, and Click has been a secondary engaged to their primary. This time Click is in charge, he is the primary guy, he's learned all the lessons. He's 6 years in, he's 26 years old right now, I think, and he is actually better than he has been before. He is a much more complete support than he ever was, and he's clearly taking the leadership in all of those timings I was talking about. Where they then ended up falling apart, one, Nano was really good at the start of any series, and that kind of like collapsed later on. I do wonder, I mean, it was nerves, because I've seen him execute on these things really well, and then when push came to shove, especially in play-ins, it didn't necessarily come to shove, right? Like, to the point where I was wondering if he was lagging. Something both Matchco and Desire do really, really well, though, is they have a good understanding of those side tempos that we like to talk about with Ultraliga, for example, right? So, Italy ends up becoming a version of Ultraliga that has a semblance of an early game. Right, and then you understand what the actual situation is in Ultraliga, because I could talk about that with Arabian League too. Where Matchco lost, it's kind of already hinted, where Matchco lost to Desire was not in early game, and was not because they had a significantly better understanding of side tempos. Where they lost was because Slowq and Zamulek are two of the best team fighters in all the minor leagues, and they have the capability of taking on some of the best in the upper leagues as well. Game 4 and 5 of their grand finals especially was entirely defined by slowQ's absolute refusal to lose the fucking game. It was mental. He was winning matchups he shouldn't win. Urgot was like 7-1 in game 4, I think it was, and slowQ just like found Odie at one point in a really random way, and turned around the team fight Urgot was supposed to be carrying. Urgot was being played by Color at the time. And it just went from there. Like, slowQ went from strength to strength in those game 4 fights. I talk about slowQ's individual performance there because it was the best mid lane performance in any ERL grand final. This split was slowQ's performance against Matchco. People were telling me he prefers to be called Swedish rather than Korean, but I asked him and he said he's fine with literally either, to be clear. But they are defined by those two. Zamulek, if you don't remember who he is, he was a member of IHG back in... God, am I so old that it was like 2021? Please don't be 2021 IHG. Please don't be 2021 IHG. Please don't, please don't, please. It was! 2021 IHG was uniquely defined. Wow, I'm old. 2021 IHG was uniquely defined by being 10k gold behind multiple instances and them winning anyway, because Eskik and Zamulek were just absurd team fighters. And Zamulek and Eskik are both still absurd team fights, but Eskik is not going to be here. He was in Prime League. He was a victim of the Eintracht Spandau resurgence.
And of course, Veteran
Zamulek, on the other hand, is going to be
later
here.
since this whole EU
Okay.
army.
Welp, just got jump
Pedro,
scared by
thank you so
ad.
much for the 17 months in the army, my man. Thank you so much. He is still that guy. Being a good team fighter is going to matter here, especially when it comes to the Ultraliga teams, because that is how Z10 are going to try to win every game. If Z10 are able to out-team fight you, you lose the fucking game. You need people like Zamulek and you need people like slowQ if you want to be doing well, and this also gives them a prescience later on in the tournament that other teams don't have, because those contests will come in thick and fast when the pressure is on. So I do like them for this. They are not as smart as Matchco. They are not there on every timing. Rylek pushes too hard, in my opinion, for camp advantage, but at least there's a thought process there, right? I don't think he's actually on good timings, but slowQ is able to make it work. Zamulek's able to make it work. Ephias, if he is comfortable being called Italian because he has dual nationality, I would say is a better support in those fights than Click is. But Ephias ultimately wants to be on the list with Mainter, is what he told me. They are really good at following up on what shouldn't be good opportunities. So in this regard, you could think of Desire as a version of Z10 that has good map understanding. But Rylek is not Blue Azure. He's trying to be. He's almost on his way there. And there's maybe a potential there for him to be in the future. But right now, I look at Rylek and I worry that we're just going to see those timings be abused against better teams. And we are about to be looking at the groups after one more team, so we'll be able to better tell you then if Rylek's going to get abused there. Or if it's a scenario where maybe Rylek slowQ's 2v2 is so good that it won't necessarily matter so much. Right? Let me find... Last one is Lion's Creed. Oh my god. Okay. I actually cast NLC. I do that. Alright? So I can talk for a while. I can talk for a while about NLC. I'm not entirely sure I want to. What I do want to do... Actually, first off, any last questions about Italian League before I do this? Any last questions? Eagle is the best Italian player other than Click, and teams should be looking at him. Desire versus GK, who wins? That's an interesting one. Color will get much less abused. Not Color, fuck, sorry. Emperors, actually, no, wait, there's potential there. I mean, if GK opt for stuff like swapping in early and stuff like this, I think that would just really mess up Desire. That's where I'm worried. Where I'm worried about Desire is if GK do something early. If they do something in the early game to them, that really messes up because they're so weak at that point in the game, right? How did Atleta not make it? They suck. No, I mean Eagle. No, I definitely mean Eagle. I definitely mean Eagle. Definitely meant Eagle. I definitely did not mean either of those mids. If Exnom wasn't doing his best upset impression, they would have won way more games than they did. Are Italians' PCs made of pasta? What? Okay, we're moving on to NLC. Everyone knows they are. First of all, Ruddy the fuck up. Alright, Ruddy didn't make it. So, I guess we'll just talk a little bit about Ruddy's fall, because I did think that they would get out of their group. I wasn't just paid to make that, to say those things. It was definitely a reversion to before the second half of the split Ruddy, where they were nowhere near as patient. You could see the moments where they decided to go for the straight 5-man in midsection when they did not need to do so, when they could have played out the lanes. You also saw the moments where they did play out those lanes. You saw in Alex's Z game, you saw even in the Young game, those moments where they showed a really good understanding of those sides, kind of how Desire would like to play them out. And you also saw, like, Alex at his worst, right? You also saw Natty at his worst. Silky Smath had a uniquely bad showing. Silky Smath was normally an extremely strong rock for the entirety of the team. And in play-ins, like, on that Jinx, like, Boda, for example, was able to find him way more often than he should have been able to find him, right? And we were very cognizant watching it. He was not very cognizant in-game being there of these moments. It was very sad to see. Justcan actually had the best showing he's had all split. Justcan for me was typically the weak link with that lineup. But in lane, he was finding so many genuinely really good opportunities with Ruddy and was no longer that weak link. And that wasn't just because Silky Smath had a uniquely bad turn. It wasn't just because Alex's demons finally caught up to him that he'd been running away from in that 11 win streak. It was because he genuinely did get better. He genuinely did improve, which means that is another Turkish support player that I am now praising coming in. I don't know what Built is doing in solo queue with Riven, but I still have not seen any really good Riven game, or even good Riven games from Built in competitive. I don't know what he's doing there. You keep bringing this up. Every time you do this, you're setting yourself up to meme him, or him to be memed. Stop. Stop! Stop. Stop the Riven. Okay. Still don't know. This was probably the best player, by the way. I don't know, like, Nord Esports was like watching Matchco in the sense that, like, they were very support-led, but their support was like a full rookie. It's his first split in the Tier 1 region. He is older, but it is his first split. And that for me is always extremely impressive and extremely important, and that's what I look for when it comes to like MVP stuff. So shout outs to Romeo if he's out there. Anyway, Lion's Creed. You overrate age? I do not overrate age at all. What? Do you know who I am? Anyway, Lion's Creed are a win lane win game team. Best way to put it. Jinjo's doing his best Forgiven impression down there. Kasing is pretending that he actually, you know, accepted Forgiven's offer back in 2015 of playing with him. Tempt and Johan. So Tempt just goes all in the nanosecond he thinks that in a 1v1 state you're vulnerable. He doesn't seem to have any cognizant idea of what enemy jungle support is doing when he does that. Johan is very cognizant of that, and Johan does perform the white role in this team, the white attic out role, the gentlemates jungler role on this team. His job is to make sure that these laners are not interfered with when Banderas pushes, Jinjo pushes like an absolute madman, and Tempt all-ins like an absolute madman non-stop on repeat 24/7. Right? This is a full free lane win the game that way, extend the laning phase as long as possible, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, and eventually we will win the game. It's one of the most aggressive teams I've seen in all of the ERLs because of this, and it is open to particular forms of abuse. Like, I'll just pick Pyke against this team, right? Maybe laning phase won't go so well, but it'll be very difficult for them later on. I'd pick globals in general. I'd pick Karthus. I would pick TF. I'd pick stuff like this into that team, not just because it gets priority, but because it makes you very, very vulnerable if you are extending like that. But I do love the playstyle. I particularly like Jinjo. I want to see this guy picking Caitlyn more. He is that kind of a player. We don't see that kind of a player that much anymore, and it's very clear that he calls the whole only way is forward mindset, and I love it. And I do want to see him particularly do well. And yes, that is the only British player in the form of Kasing. I think it might be true of like the whole... Yeah. He's the only Brit. That's it. That's all we've got. He is also the oldest. He's 30 years old. Yeah, it's the only Brit. This sounds like a team designed in a lab to lose unlosable games to Garçones. What a statement. That could actually... Could it be true? It could be, man. I don't know. I don't view Lion's Creed as a neutral objective team. I view them as a tower-taking team, you know? But yeah. Alright. And this leads us to... Okay, I'll just close all this. Close you, 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 close you. We've already done Arabian League. You had the times. You couldn't make it here. Now all your players will be late, because they'll be like, remember when you were late for Veteran's stream? Clearly you don't care about that. You've lost all power now. Alright. So now we get to the groups. Besiktas, GK, Los Heretics, Zero Tenacity. Holy shit. Okay, first off, I think these groups are all absurdly well balanced. Smooth as butter, to be honest. They're all competitive. None of them have a straight, clear top 1, top 2, except for maybe Group D, which is the opposite of how we normally talk about it. We normally talk about Group D as the, like, life group. But it's... yeah. For the rest of them... nonetheless... nonetheless. Alright, so we got... We got Besiktas. We got GK. We got Heretics. And we got... I think the Z for them is black when they do this. And we got Z10. So... I think something like this is kind of likely. It's difficult. But I feel like this is probably the most likely one. Team Heretics, Besiktas, Z10, GK. I think GK at the bottom is unlikely. You think Besiktas is better than GK? You see, you notice how they are... Oh, wait. No, bro. This is the other way around. LVP teams usually do better in BO5 than BO1. That is true. For me, having now outlined all the strengths and weaknesses of each team, I actually do believe GK come out ahead. I actually do. And I think GK are stronger in BO1 than they are in BO5. And then I don't know about Besiktas Z10. I would actually, I'm being real. Z10 have to show significant improvement. And if they show significant improvement, then I can put them up there. But otherwise, I think it's more like this. And then, like, if there's, like, a closeness, it's with these two, right? But it's not with Z10. But I do think GK will edge out Besiktas. I think they just understand the game better. Now, here's where Besiktas are better than GK. And this is what they have to avoid, right? I like Decap. Leo is a bit inconsistent. These guys are monsters. And Paideia showing up against Decap and against Leo is going to be how these guys win. They can shut that down. However, you know what then I remember? You know what then I remember? If that's your advantage, alright, what did GK do when they were in a similar position against a hyper-aggressive bot lane? From a team that is in a more successful region overall, what did they do? Right, Thomas Fate's got it already. Right, Thomas Fate has it already. Blue Azor, if you were the entire team, I'd rate it higher. But as is, you're like the only guy with a brain in early game. Like, it's actually a lane swap scenario. That's what they'll do. right? So I think for me, it's like, this comes down to, like, this one, like, okay. BJK, if, swap. And then otherwise, it gets kind of like more even, like this. If BJK 2v2 plus counterpick. Right. No idea what I did here. No idea what I did here. Like, I think it's like that. And then Z10 are like... If learned... Side tempo... Early... Anything, really. Then they could go higher. But as is, I'm gonna be completely honest. You lost to back to the game because you're dumb as shit. I'm just gonna be honest. Right? Like... Those guys literally gift you the map. And you just go 5. Like, it's insane, actually. Like, it's not... It's absurd. Those guys were the litmus test of the whole fucking region. Oh. As is, they need to get 5v5 straight up. They need to get 5v5 straight up. If they get 5... They should win 5v5s. Like, I think when it comes to, like... GA team fight rating... Then it gets more like... Then it gets like quite even, by the way. Except... Observe. Except I put them below. Like, it gets really even until this point, right? Yeah, I think I do. I think I just do it like this, and Z10 might even be like a little bit up. Like somewhere between here. Like, that's the team fight rating. But GK are just really good on the map, man. Like, really good on the map, man. Blue Azor's, like, the best part of your early game. Like, the leads you got against Orbit and Onimo, for example, in the first BO5 were pretty much entirely because of Blue Azor sitting on top of Afro Boy, and Afro Boy engaging on... Well, not engaging, but getting sucked into skirmish situations. You win those games like Spike Syndicate won their games, right? With Blue Azor getting skirmish angles early that Orbit and Onimo had no real hope to win, and then winning on those fights. But those games took so long for Z10 to close out, or for you guys to close out, because what ended up happening was you had no understanding of how to play outsides. You didn't do it. You overgrouped. And as a result, even if you were winning these contests, you didn't get objectives off of it. Whereas if Orbit and Onimo got the same advantages, the game was over in 27 minutes max. You know? And the solution there is not to become more like Spike Syndicate. The solution there is to become more like Orbit and Onimo, right? And this was all best expressed in the Back to the Game games, right? The Back to the Game games severely punished Z10 for their lack of learning league, right? For basically being an ego super team. This is why if it was like a team fight rating thing, you guys are actually really high up. But if it's not that, then I think it's this, right? And if GK lane swap over Besiktas, I think they just get out ahead of Besiktas every time. Because Besiktas need that 2v2 stuff, right? If they have that, they're in a really, really good position. If they don't have that, and if Besiktas get like counterpick 2v2, I think Besiktas will just run GK's bot lane into the ground. And this is why GK get more vulnerable in BO5s, because there are points like that bot lane that you can just press really, really hard, and it's not a flame on Decap, it's a low-key flame on Leo. But there are so many teams where their strength is a bot lane like that, you know? Why does lane swap help if enemy is prepped? Currently, no one seems to understand why lane swap's even good. And even if the enemy is prepped, they have to match that 2v2. Is Blue Azor known in the LVP against smited by everyone? He's not known by me by getting outsmited by everyone, but you're gonna have to ask Spanish people. Z10 sweep if they get, like, okay, Z10 win con just 5v5. Like, if Z10 don't want to just get better at all of this, then Z10 win by fighting. Or just fight. Herma. Job done. Just play like psychos. Job done. Why is my top getting solo killed every game in Ultraliga Veteran? He's probably shit. Why is lane swap good? Lane swap is good into Besiktas because Besiktas' advantage is their 2v2 lane on bot. That's their big advantage against GK, so GK would want to lane swap to avoid that. Yeah, like Miyagi Pix is saying. Like, it's a win condition for Besiktas is how you should think about it, right? Them allowing Kaori and Paideia to run over your bot lane on some fucking Draven Janna 2v2 is how these guys will win games. That's how they will do it. Don't let them do it. It's that simple, just don't let them do it. Just 2v1. If they handshake the 2v1, job done. I'm underestimating Besiktas solo laners. Buddy, what happens if they lane swap against them? So they're 2v1 against their top laner, but their top laner's gonna outplay Bong. Like what? I don't understand what's being said here. Everything that you guys are saying right now gets fucked by a lane swap scenario that we know GK does. We know GK knows how to do this. They even do fasting swaps. Lane swaps meta right now? GK just did it, bro. They just did it into Gentlemates. It's how they beat Gentlemates. And as much as you might want to rate Besiktas laners, Ragnar, Ica are playing really well right now. Okay? And you're Turkish. So I know you will say Bao is good. They would be significantly more down in gold if they didn't do the swaps. You get this, right? And part of the reason why they were down in gold is because they don't fully understand it. Even toddlers win with Varus Ashe? That is true, but Varus and Ashe are... Well, Varus more so, are very consistent bands. Very consistent bands. Let's do Group B. For that reason, right? And you're getting more Ashe picks to try to deny as well. Alright, which one's Group B? Go away, go away. Boostgate, Desire, K-Corp, Blue, SK Prime. So this one feels a lot easier. Oh god. This one's less competitive. It's going to be less writing on the screen. I'm also going to get unfollowed by the Desire manager that's in my chat. I think it's this blue. God! These two actually... It's actually a really difficult one. What even is Desire's logo? Great. Alright. That is basically the order. So for me the question, right, becomes about Boostgate versus Desire, right? Okay, first off, the reason K-Corp Blue will be SK Prime is because I have decided, in my infinite wisdom, that jungle is all that matters anymore. Alright, how you play around and for jungle matters much more than anything else right now. And so, Mini Milky Way and his 4 wards will win. SK Prime, that is their biggest weakness. And Mini Milky Way will annihilate their biggest weakness in Hellfire and cleanse the earth of, you know, fake teams that win with Jinx only, okay? BGT do have a good jungle understanding. And that is my current issue. This world exists. Like, there's a genuine non-zero chance of this world happening. Supermassive aren't in their group. I didn't rate them below Supermassive. It's actually very difficult. Like, there's a lot of conditions by which Boostgate win. I think this could come down to 2v2 bot draft again. Not Boostgate first? No. I don't think I favor them. Like, I favor them in the specific circumstance I already talked about, right? I'm trying to think who I put ahead of the other here, though. I already answered that vision. God, this one's really hard, actually. First off, I want to say if SK Prime are allowed Jinx, they just insta-win. Right. Boostgate's worst aspect that is gonna really fuck them in this group is that their drafts are shit. That's what's gonna bone them in the group, man. They're gonna do some stupid shit like Kalista first pick and then he's just gonna slam Talia Poppy, finally. And just not let them get... Yeah, I can't do it. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't put them above SK Prime, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't fucking do it. Yeah, I mean, the problem right now is that their drafts are shit. Like, I actually do see the world where Desire are ahead of Boostgate, right? Because that's currently their biggest issue. It's clearly quite player-run drafts, and they're clearly not... Like, they should get punished a hell of a lot more than they are, and they will get punished with these teams the amount that they should, alright? Higher... if non-grief drafts alright. Because they are good on the map, and so are Desire. Their bot laners are good, and so are SK Primes. Their jungler is great, and so is K-Corps. They actually get matched by all these teams in very, very big ways. The fact that their drafts are shit is going to be so bad for them here, actually. That's going to be really bad. Like, I'd have more faith in Besiktas, because with Besiktas it's really simple. If they get the 2v2 counterpick bot and GK match them in those lanes, they win the game. They win the game. It's that simple. It is that simple. Otherwise, GK win. Right? With Boostgate, almost said Besiktas again. With Boostgate, they are going to get annihilated for a lot of their draft tendencies. They almost got annihilated by Spike Syndicate on their draft tendencies. So... that's their biggest problem right now, because the advantages that they have had in TCL cease to exist at a point here. But like in terms of jungle ranking, it's like... it's like... Linkus... Chef... and then like a Dearth, you know? Like they're like, it's really good, right? So like if they're enabled, it could work, right? But this is the problem, right? The problem is the drafts. Yeah, like stuff like Kate's support would be great, right? But I don't want them to do like Kalista first pick, you know, stuff like this. That's what I don't want to see from them. Oh god, do I have to rank? Okay. Let me just make this really clear right now off the bat. I refuse. They're staying over there. I don't give a shit. I refuse. I'm not ranking them. They are 4th if everyone's sane, and they are 1st if everyone loses their minds. Alright? And there is a non-zero chance that everyone loses their fucking minds, okay? Oh. Wow. These are very similar teams, actually. Okay, now just to be really clear, we're going to draw a box around Garsonas. Alright? We're going to draw gel lines. Okay. We're gonna, like, draw, like, a door here. Be like a mini thing here. Right? And over here... is the key. We will not give Garçones the key. Okay? They're not allowed to spoil my beautiful lecture by existing. Okay? They are gonna stay in the cage. Okay? Stay in the cage. Alright? Garçones is locked in the cage and will not be participating. Okay? We're gonna keep them in the fucking cage, alright? Cool. You know you can type on Paint, right? You know you can shut the fuck up, yeah? Ugh, don't talk to him like that. I'll talk to him however I want. You know why, Don Jake? Because he's still in the tournament and you ain't. So I will actually talk to him. Alright. This should be clear cut. This should be BDSA, Supermassive, NGX. Okay? This should still be that. Is there a world where NGX are number 2? Unlikely in this one. Supermassive are a phenomenally strong team fighting team, and that is how they will look to win a game, right? They will do hard invades. BDSA is in a better position to play against that because they put their own jungler behind. They don't really care what you do to him, right? They're very lane centric. They are very likely to just not let Jack Troll get out of the lane. This is going to be an all-in heavy composition from Supermassive versus your typical, like, range poke setup from BDSA, right? There's a world where Desire ends our group. I mean, there's a world where NGX wins. I'm saying that world is not as likely as the one where Supermassive wins with a high degree of confidence. What's the highest you think Garçones go? There is no rational thought when it comes to Garçones. A judgment about Garçones is a judgment about the mental stability of the teams that they are against. Okay? And I am not a psychologist. I'm not going to tell you. Alright? I think they should not beat any team here. They should not beat any team here. The conversation should be, will NGX take games off Supermassive or not? That should be the conversation. Alright? And then it's going to become, well, they did, but then they got hypnotized by Garçones. Okay? So we're not going to talk about this. Why they're in the fucking cage. Oh. They're in the cage. Because it's not... We're not discussing this. Let's discuss how NGX beats Supermassive. That's more interesting. Okay? Please. Leave them in the fucking cage. Do not discuss them further. Oh. Is it really this simple? Why put SUP over BDSA? Wait, what? Wait, what is the route you see to beating BDSA? How do you think you defeat BDSA? Other than hypnotizing them, but those guys are in the cage. I only believe SUP, don't think, plus Narmut. Okay. But Narmut, by the way, is how you lose to NGX. Alright? Like... with counterpick topside, they will beat them. Alright? They will actually beat them. That's how they win. Okay? You now want me to replicate this against JNX. Like, the Supermassive above BDSA one doesn't exist. There is a way to talk about NGX over Supermassive, but that's it, man. The Vayne guy in Plains is an interesting way to talk about Boda. When I think about Boda, I think about Olaf, but yeah, he is that guy. He's insanely good. Any win conditions for SUP against BDSA? No realistic ones in my opinion. Okay, Vision Bets, why are you so hard on Supermassive beating BDSA? Okay, can any of you guys tell me what the route for Supermassive defeating BDSA is? Boda's always in my chat. That's why he's so good at the game. Yeah, Luger is really good. Right? But that's why I think they beat NGX. Right? I think Supermassive will naturally get their Jack Troll on the map scenario to perma invade against NGX because bot lane will just win. That's the problem. Right? That's the problem. Like, I don't see... Yeah, like... into... JD... Jung slash map, right? Like that's just how they win. You have to be able to contest this. BDSA naturally contests that. NGX do not naturally contest that. NGX need like hard counterpick topside into like the guy just becomes like a fucking 10-0 Olaf, which is possible. It's being done, right? But this is the problem. And then Garsones do the thing we discussed earlier, all right? What thing? I'm not discussing the thing again. I'm not discussing the thing again. I'm discussing Group D, actually. Fuck Group C. Say goodbye to Garsones. It dies in the cage. Alright? It dies in the fucking cage. There you go. We'll see them again. Oh, we'll see them again. Oh, we'll see them again. Alright? We'll see them again tomorrow, okay? You can't ruin my predictions now, Spooder, because they were in the cage and we did not discuss them. Alright? Yeah, that's the other thing. Garçones could just play Kingmaker and just, like, lose 2 games to, like, NGX and then beat the Besiktas twice, you know? Like, that could work, you know? That could happen. That's what I hate about them being here at all.
And of course, Veteran retweets it like 4 months later and sends his whole EU army at me.
Glitchscore, thank you for your 2nd month in the army. You are a disgusting, dirty leaker who should feel guilty about your own existence, but thank you. And welcome to the army. Okay, now this group's interesting, and no one has to be in the cage. See how that works? We don't need the cage to talk about lines. We don't need the cage to talk about gentlemates either. It's beautiful. Wow, I needed to do this. Okay, Lion's Creed and... Wow, how many colors do you have? You have 2 colors. Fuck it. I don't want to do the E, man. Whatever. There you go. Alright. How do we do this? Dude, you guys right now are thinking this is like a huge meme with Garçones. Tomorrow, I really hope they give me Garçones games on the clean feed tomorrow. We will see it happen in real time. I'm not kidding. We will see it happen in real time at least once. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. Every game it happens. No one truly fathoms this until they see it for themselves. No, Laser Break. I announced it on Twitter today. I'm co-streaming the whole event. I'm co-streaming it. I'm not going to be on the broadcast. I have co-stream rights. Alright. I'll see you tomorrow, man. Okay. That means I'll be able to give my own personal, unfiltered commentary on how Spooder did not deserve to win this game, but is going to do so anyway, because it's going to happen again! Anyway. No, I may as well just add some highlights here. Wow, I fucked this up so hard. Wow! Okay, it's fine. We're going for, like, some cool artsy thing here. There you go. Okay. Alright. The thing is, for me, I love top lane in this group. I love it. I love top lane in this group is amazing. Right? You have Prime on Orbit Anonymo. You have Banderas on Lion's Creed. You have Ragnar on Gentlemates. You have Vertigo on Eintracht Spandau. This is a brilliant top lane group. The problem is, the way that Orbit and Honor break up in the game is through those teleports on groupings we are talking about. It's literally just how they break up in all their games, or the 1v0 stuff. So Orbit and Honor have none of their advantages in this group. Because Lion's Creed will just not group. Gentlemates will just not group. And if Eintracht Spandau group, it will only be with a 100% certitude that it will go well. So there is no... If you're Polish, Good news for you, there are Polish players on other teams for you to support, like Garsones with Sisyphek, who, let's be real, are going to just mess up that entire group. Because Orbit and Nonomo ain't doing it. And right now, I don't have Z10 doing much either. I want them to do well. But it's not that simple right now, right? So for me, this is like OAE last. This might be the order. OAE last, Lion's Creed here, and then it gets very difficult here. There's honestly potential from all three teams, if I think about it. Because Gentlemates 131 is very slow. Eintrachts have had a lot of experience countering Gentlemates. And then Lion's Creed play a very similar game to Wait, they're the same team! Wait, they're the same fucking team! They are the same team! It just depends who out-executes the other. They are actually the same fucking team, what the fuck? Huh. With a crucial difference being that Lion's Creed mid laner is a psychopath, and Gentlemate's mid laner is a beacon of a lighthouse among the chaos. What makes them the same team? So they are both hardcore extend lane teams, right? They just play... They play like Forgiven style bot lane. And then Ica plays like a rock, but like Tempt is very, very all in all the time on mid. And top lane also plays for push dynamics, but both their junglers just try to sit on top of the other jungler and prevent them impacting the lanes. So they are very similar except for this mid thing. So it might come down to mid lane, right? This actually might come down to mid lane. That's really cool, actually. Mid determines. This is gonna be really bloody, actually. Or all lanes out skill. Because that's the other thing, right? It's Ragnar into Banderas. Jinjo will go shit like Caitlyn Callista, but he is gonna be doing it into Bao, into Camilius. Kissing into, like, they could also, like, they both play the same game. But the laners from Gentlemates should just be better. No, they should just be better. So given that, the fact that Gentlemates should just have better laners should win. But this could also come down to draft. Right? Maybe draft can counter? Maybe. Maybe draft can decide it. But they are essentially the same team. If I don't write playstyle here, someone will be like, he means as good as, because most people just think about the game in really stupid ways. Which matches this one. This one will be extremely bloody. Or it will just be a one-sided stomp. That will be a really good one to watch. And then with Orbit and Anonymo, top 1VO, TP counters. These are their big advantages. non-factors in this group, right? Alright, that's how I see it. Anything else? If we learn everything about League of Legends by tomorrow, we are Dark Horse. Let's... Or, if you just fight. Perma. All the time. That would genuinely work, by the way. If you just keep fighting. If you just fucking perma fight, you should just win. That's what you should have done against Back to the Games. Just fucking fight them non-stop. But, like, just fight them on the lane they were freezing. And then you just win every time. Job done. Oh... Or be in the group with Garçons, because Garçons will mess up everything I'm saying. Alright, any more questions? Because otherwise we'll see you on the VOD tomorrow. It should be gentlemates. Like, if you just want, like, it should be gentlemates. Like, let me just make this clear. Mate. Favored. So it should be Eintracht and Gentlemates, okay? It should be Eintracht, Spandau, and Gentlemates, alright? The real dark horse is genuinely Garçones. The other dark horse is GK for potentially getting, like, they have a really good group to get out on stylistically, right? Do I have to, like, make this clear, more clear than 8? There you go. That's an 8.
Of course,
no? Everyone can see that.
Like 4 months later and sends his whole EU army.
Spooder, welcome to the army, my man. Enjoy. You'll now have access to every VOD where you make me lose my fucking mind when you win from, like, impossible scenarios. Don't know if you allow betting talk here. No, I allow it. I allow it. There are plenty of people who've just watched me to do that, yeah. It's really good educational info. Oh yeah, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. I'm a massive nerd about all of this stuff. My primary thing that I do on my stream is watching the ERLs and watching, so I have a lot of opinions on a lot of teams. Yeah. Biggest one for Eins, inting every G1 draft. True! True, actually. Wait, your third eye is open. Eintracht Spandau have typically won later games in their series, not opening games. So that is true.